Hey, what's up? Dean's here, Performance. We're at the shop today, and I am working on Chavo's C10 LS swap. So, in the last video, I got the motor out. I have got the motor and transmission out, and that went off to the new owner. And then I just kind of went through and took all the fuel lines and all that stuff out. So, just in the meantime, like what I've been doing was I had his 5.3 set on an engine stand and looking at the truck, looking over. I always kind of like to look everything over. I noticed his lower control arm bushings were shot. Like there's almost nothing left of them. So he had mentioned wanting to do a cam. You can see that one there is, I'll get the light, is basically blown out, and they're pretty much all the same. So he had wanted to kind of do a cam in it, and he has a budget. So finding that, I said, why don't we, do the control arms, put the money to a little bit better use with, an overall finished product on the truck. So he agreed. He's getting some tubular control arms, some nice ones. So what I did was put a 6.0 cam in the 5.3. And that has better lift duration. But it's not so aggressive that you have to do springs and push rods and all of that, which you could always do if you wanted to, but you don't have to do it. It's a 6.0 cam and it uses the same beehive springs from the factory. But there's been a few different videos. I think Richard Holdner did one where he dynoed it, and it made like 35 more horsepower or something like that just by sticking a 6.0 cam in the 5.3. So he should get really good torque, little more horsepower, and that's kind of the thing about this truck is he's going to drive this truck. He doesn't need a big stage 3, stage 4 and have it sound like crap with no stall converter, runs like crap. So that's what I did, and then I put the new cam retainer plate on it. I always put new cam retainer plates. It's a cheap insurance to not lose oil pressure. I had a new water pump that I can't use on another build, so I threw that in there for them. Then we got the 92mm G Plus cheap throttle body, but knock on wood, they seem to all work really good. I have the adapter, the 3-bolt, the 4-bolt adapter. I also plug the valve cover tube on the throttle body. I do a plug. I thread it and plug it. I just think that looks a lot neater than pinching the piece over. Got the shorty headers on it. Got it in the truck, and you notice it's leaning way back. There's no transmission in there, but with the ICT billet plates, you can see them kind of with the ICT billet plate bolted to the motor. That's the factory clamshell and the factory frame mount, and the motor dropped right in. Sits really good, other than it leans way back. But I have to get the transmission in, get the cross member back under it, and then we can position the motor. We have to check his pinion angle and stuff. And being this was a drive-by-wire intake, I never noticed that bolt there and that bolt there, the little like riv nut that they put in the intake from the factory, they're not in those holes. So I took, what are they called, riv nuts? Yeah, I took my riv nuts, I think they're M6 or M5, whatever, and literally riv nutted right into the intake, and it worked perfect. So that was really cool. I got like a factory style throttle bracket on there. I have a bunch of the small parts that I seem to always forget. Throttle cable, so on and so forth. All of that'll be here soon. I also did do the like Escalade or Tahoe or Suburban, whatever, radiator, which is much larger than his radiator over there. And this one's like a brand new radiator out of, I don't know, whatever I took it out of. And then I have the dual electric fans out of the same like Yukon, Suburban, whatever. The lower hose is hooked up. Put a new seal on the thermostat housing. And then I have the steam port vent. I just basically, it's the stock hose. I just twisted it down and it runs all the way under to the steam port location right there. So like the factory hose where it normally comes up and over and to the bottom of the throttle body, that worked out perfect. Got to get his alternator on there. We got the power steering hose. This is the hose off of the Suburban, Tahoe, whatever it was. And they bolt right into pretty much every GM steering gearbox, like all the way back into the 70s, I think. For whatever reason, they never changed that. And then the return line is somewhere in there. It's in there. You can see the hose clamp. Barely see the hose clamp. There's no light. So the steering's hooked up. Power steering, I should say. The brake booster hose is hooked up to the back of the intake. Blah. And then I took his wires and I pulled them back across, and then I took all the loom off of them, pulled them out, and of course, same as every car I find or work on, I find the same thing over and over and over, which is funny. You've got a pink ignition wire that was taped into the, with all the starter wires and battery wires, just taped in there, open. No idea where that goes. There was another one somewhere. Yeah, I know there's another one here. So this is where this goes on the main lug, the battery lug of the starter. And then we have, splits into two wires, splits into another two wires, which that one you can see is burnt off. So wherever that went to, no idea. But that's just kind of the theme with, I don't know, over the years, and different people get their hands on stuff. They do really weird things. But I got it all undone. Most of these are factory sensors. I know probably the green. Let's see. This is alternator. Nope. So, oh, this is the other one. Choke. Okay, so that's his electric choke. So we won't need electric choke. This is his alternator wire, like that turns the alternator on, I believe. And it just has a little pigtail that went to the back of the alternator. It's not really the right way to do that, but on these they might have been that way. This, I believe, was the oil pressure sensor. This was dangling at the back of the motor. You could see it was burnt, crusty, but it has 3 wires, so I think this is the oil pressure. Here was another one. This is coolant. And then this was another one that's just been cut and was left wrapped up in there. So I got these pulled out, and then this is the HEI wire. So this most likely will be what I use to trigger the Terminator X. And there's another one. I believe this is the AC compressor. Not 100%. But I have to figure all that out. He's got another one over here that wasn't plugged into anything. It's got two ends on it. Not sure what that one's for. I'll have to go on like a Mitchell and get a diagram, because there's a lot of wires. Actually, I think this is the AC compressor. Yeah, this is the AC compressor. So this, we need to trigger our factory LS compressor if he decides to do AC, which he will. Another wire cut. This plug, I don't know what this went to. This plug, no idea. They were just kind of stuck down in there. And this harness is actually supposed to come up and over. It's supposed to continue across, but somebody looped it under, which is fine. It's a little bit neater coming under, but you know, there's a lot of things left in there. I have to cut that. And then what I'll most likely do is, being that for the blower motor, the big red wire right there it comes over and then up to that terminal block, which then jumps out and goes down to the starter and to the back of the alternator. Most likely what I'll do is take that block off and I'll pull this loom back over, because we won't need it going across. And then I'll get rid of that plug there, which again, no idea what that one's for. I'll have to look it up. But I'll pull this harness back, and then I can take that terminal for the blower and I can feed it down to the starter. Or maybe put that terminal over on this side. There are bolt holes here. They're already there. So maybe I could take that terminal, bring it over here, shorten that harness, bring it to over here, and then still have the wire go out to the alternator, and then the wire will go down to the starter. That's an option. And then I got the starter solenoid wire. And then this one here is the one that feeds into the cab, which again came directly off of the starter, and it has like the built-in fusible link. So we need to keep that, which we will. But I just have to restring these. Got the throttle cable out, got the speedometer cable out. I didn't cut them. Took them off neat. The throttle cable I'll have to cut for the little black clip that goes on the pedal that holds the cable to the pedal. I'll have to cut the steel cable to get that off, because I need that clip. But yeah, other than that, I kind of sized up doing the intake, and once the alternator's on there and everything, doing a boot, it gets it really close to the idler pulley. I could go to a smaller idler pulley, but it still gets it really, really close to this pulley. Plus you've got the radiator hose that goes over. So I'll most likely take and build a new battery box to go over here, which again, these trucks were set up. I would take it, these fenders, like they're mass produced for every year and style of this truck. So you could see the dimples here and here with the hole already in it for like a second battery tray. And even the inner fenders are dimpled, like right there, there's a dimple. And I believe, yeah, you can see underneath this battery tray the bolt hole. So like this battery tray would just be a flipped version on this side, and this would be your second battery, and that dimple would be where the hole would be drilled to bolt down. So I'm gonna kind of repeat that. I'll take this one out. I'll probably take it out in a minute here, and then I'll build it out of aluminum. He'll never have to worry about it rotting out again. And then basically what I'll do is I'll copy this pattern on the top, and then I'll make a new support underneath to bolt everything to that side there. And that way it moves my battery over. I can run, you know, battery cables on this side. Not a big deal. Kind of like a factory LS had. There's a ton of room. But yeah, I got a lot done on the truck. Plugging away on it. And my next step is, now that I got kind of everything stripped out of it, my next step is to get the transmission. I have to swap the converter out. That's like a high stall, whatever, double disc or something converter. So I have to swap that out. We're going to be using like a factory 4L80 converter in the truck. But I'll get that swapped out and get it cleaned up, get it up in there, and do the cross member for the transmission. And I also, for the radiator, totally forgot. Hiya. This lip that comes across, it came all the way across. And I think that's, yeah, like the factory shroud sat over it like that. So it sits over this lip, and this will give you an idea on the size of the radiator that was in here. So this is your factory shroud, right? Like the radiator would have ended here, and it would have ended here. Well, the tanks probably would have ended out a little bit. So this is probably roughly a foot, 10 to 12 inches wider than the factory radiator. And we get to eliminate having this big caution fan melted piece of plastic in there. That actually, if I remember, wasn't even bolted in. It was zip tied in, because I don't think this is the right one for the truck. So there won't be a mechanical fan. And what I did was, being at these mount, you know, 2 locations, which I have it sitting on the rubber underneath the tank. I have like the cups that sit down there. I cut the little, these tanks have like a little nipple with a rubber, and it sits through the like frame hole, like a bracket in the frame. So I cut those nipples off, and I put the little regular rubber that like comes in these trucks, put that over the end tank, and then set it down on the radiator core support. And then, you know, put the fan in there. Fan clips in down there, it slides in, and then it bolts in up here. But I cut this whole lip off, and what I want to do, or what I'm doing, is I made, which is still quite warm, but I made this panel that will sit like that. Obviously this will bolt up to it. It'll be nice and tight there. And then it'll bolt down in like the factory locations. I have to add a bolt to that end, but this will give it, like, we could paint it black or leave it aluminum. But this will give it a little more of kind of a factory look-ish, sort of custom. But I might paint that black. It looks a little awkward. And then I might shape the ends kind of on a more of a radius on the end. I don't know, I'll figure it out. But I just built it out of 2 pieces and just welded the whole seam all the way down to give me like a right angle. Once that bolts in somewhere around there, right there like that, then the radiator will bolt to it, and that'll hold the radiator. The fan will bolt to it, that'll hold the fan. And what I might do is take like a little steel bracket and weld the 2 nuts to it, so that you just kind of hold it here. I mean, it's not hard to get under there, but a little bit of a pain in the butt. I mean, you could always leave this. Yeah, maybe that's what I'll do. Leave this, bolt it to the fan, and then you slide it in, then bolt the radiator to it, something like that. I don't know. I haven't figured it out. I don't have bolts for it, so I got to grab a couple of bolts. But anyways, now I'm just kind of rambling. Other thing, I'll use a factory truck style hose, radiator hose, upper hose. That'll fit right on. The lower fit on. Perfect. Gotta figure out if his heater core is good or not. I need to ask him that. And then that's, yeah, ramble. But I mean, it's coming along. I have a few other things. I've been bouncing around everywhere. I make things like this. That is like a kind of like a circus performance type of thing ish, but I do stuff like that. Did a little work on the airboat, which I just got a couple of things to finish that up, which I'll most likely be doing that one tomorrow, now that I got this all almost as far as I can get on this. But yeah, that's it. I appreciate you watching. Like, subscribe, hit the bell to be notified of new videos, and have a good day.